just before I introduce the guests who are standing by, who are waiting. The backstory of this is obviously we know what happened back in October. The conflict didn't start in October. It's been an ongoing conflict. It just really erupted last October, and many of us in the Western world, I'll talk for myself at least. Um, I was completely like lack of knowledge of what was going on. I was like, okay, at first I was like, oh, it's just another conflict. I compared it to what was going on in Iran and not Iran, sorry, Ukraine and Russia. Like many people, and especially when we're not well informed, we tend to make assumptions on certain things. And I made assumptions on many things, and I know a few people may have similar sentiments as me, or may have also shared their own opinions, and not really knowing why do we care, or why should we care, why should we in the Caribbean care about what's going on in Palestine and Israel. How does it pertain to us, right? And I think this is a conversation that needs to be had, and I am happy that you can come on here and discuss with me. You can ask questions, guys, because we don't know all of the answers. I don't know all the answers, and my guests may not even know all of the answers. But I feel like they're in a position that they can assist or guide or give you information that you can make your own informed decision as to whether or not you should care, whether or not this affects you, whether or not it affects your family, or is it just because of humanity? Why should we care, right? We're going to hear various perspectives, and we're also going to hear from the ambassador to Palestine in the Caribbean, who is also here with us and joining us. I just want to acknowledge that we are also streamed on MO News. So I want to welcome, first of all, my viewers and listeners, those of you who come on every single week when I go live. I want to say special good evening to you. Those of you on Facebook, those of you on YouTube, and those of you on LinkedIn, good evening to you. And welcome to the viewers of MO News. Thank you very much for joining us. I believe MO also shares a similar perspective in terms of advocacy and wants to be informed, or wants her viewers to be informed, so we can all make good decisions in terms of where we stand, or why we stand with who we stand. So we've already had a late start, so I'm just gonna bring on my guests. I'm just gonna bring them on one by one so that we can speak with them and get to know a little bit more about this. First of all, I would like to welcome the ambassador, who is also here with us. So just give me 1 second. Let me just put this through. All right. All right. So we want to welcome first the ambassador, Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hello, good evening. I'm sorry, the reason for the late start.
Don't apologize.
From the emergency room, I'm here with you.
Thank you very much for that, for coming on. I know you're not 100%, but you're joining us, and you definitely have courage and to be in pain, but because you know why it's so important to be here today, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. All right. We're also joined by Lalu. Hi, Lalu.
Hi, greetings. Hi, Linda. Pleasure to see you, and I'm sorry to hear that you're not well.
I'm sorry to keep you all waiting. You know me, I'm always on time.
No, I understand. I can see that you're not well. You don't look well, I have to say.
And then we also want to welcome Salahuddin, who's here with us. Dr. Ahmed,
Good evening to everyone. Hello to Ambassador.
Imam, we're not hearing you. I think your audio is off. Your audio has gone off. So let's try and get you. Can't hear you, but you can drop off and come back on. That might be best. You might have received a call and it blocked off your audio. You just drop off and come back on. So we want to get this started because obviously we are falling a little behind. And I kind of want to start off the program speaking to the ambassador. Of course, if at any given time you need to drop off, we want to offer you that opportunity to do so because we understand that you're not well. But I feel like you would play an important role now in terms of kind of informing us on the historical context of the Israel-Palestine conflict. I want to say that understanding the origins of conflict is very crucial, especially for those who are unfamiliar with the deep-rooted issues that includes probably the significance of the historical events such as the 1948 Arab-Israeli war, as well as the establishment of the state of Israel, and including the displacement of Palestinians. Can you share with us the historical context of the Israel-Palestinian conflict and how has that evolved over the years?
Good evening, all, and once again, thank you for having me. And I want to clarify it is not a conflict, it's a land grab, it's an occupation. In just few months, I will be 57 years old, and I've never seen the freedom. I was born under occupation, under the second occupation of 1967. Starting, and why is it important for the Caribbeans and my fellow brothers and sisters to hear this? Because we welcomed um, the Israelis, we welcomed the Jews. It's not a religion, and I will go into that conflict because we lived together, Jews, Muslims, and Christians at that time. When they came, we welcomed them to our land. When they were thrown out of Europe, we welcomed them, we received them. When they came with the ships to Palestine, we opened our homes, our hearts. We hosted them in our homes to turn around and come and occupy our land, occupy our homes, throw us out, declare war, declare an occupation, and we, the owners of the land, ended up being refugees. More than 750,000 were thrown out of their homes. Whole villages massacred, such as Kufr Qasim, Deir Yassin. More than 630 little villages were wiped out. And we ended up with a resolution that was never taken into consideration because the resolution said the creation of Israeli state and Palestinian state. Open your eyes and understand what I'm saying. Creation of a state on our land.
Wow. So
Everyone took and recognized the state of Israel, but disregarded the state of Palestine, despite that someone is occupying our land, someone that have no right in our land, someone that throw the original citizens out of their homes.
so Ambassador, can you explain to us the two-state solution? Like, how did that come about, first of all? Like, how did what why was that even a thing? Why did it become a thing?
The To start with, in 1917, my friends. So I gift one, and after that they took it, and most of the states decided, the European states and many other states decided, and the United States decided that they will take part of Palestine. It will be occupied by the Israeli army and Israeli forces, and they will divide it into two countries, one for Israel with 78% and 22% to the Palestinians. Everyone to recognize the state of Israel and disregarded the recognition of the state of Palestine. Finally, in the Caribbean, everyone recognized Palestine after many, many years of work, and I'm so thankful for that achievement. And
Why
that
do
was
you think? Why do you think though that initially it was not recognized? Because if I claim, so I'm Dominican. I'm from a village called Vacaz, right? And I really want to keep it as simple, as stupid as possible, so every
absolutely
single person can understand,
yes.
right? So I'm from a village called Vacaz, and somebody decides that Vacaz is no longer going to be my home; it's going to be their home. And how does it how can somebody do that and then force me out? Because I can't imagine anybody telling me that I can no longer come to Vegas. Like, I just cannot imagine that, like being a Dominican, could have moved out of Vegas and gone to another community, Portsmouth, or gone to Roseau, which is the capital city. And how is it possible? How was it possible for someone to come in and claim that this is now theirs, even though this was something that was kind of decreed back by a lord? Like, I'm trying to understand it as in the simplest of forms.
That's how evil it was. That's how simple it was. People were thrown out of their homes,
Wow.
and with Israeli army, other settlers will go and live into your home. Until the day that we are living in 2024, this happens on daily basis. This happens on daily basis. Imagine to go from Vikas to Roseau. Now it might, as close as it is, there is 736 checkpoints on
Wow.
our land, not
Wow.
on the occupied land that we recognized, and we signed the agreement of Oslo in 1991, where it says the creation of the Palestinian Authority, and that will take a transition of 5 years while we transfer all to power. Again, Palestine was divided into A, B, and C. A, complete governed by the Palestinian Authority. B, it's divided between security and the Israeli security and the Palestinian. And C is under dispute.
Okay.
So if you are unlucky, as many of us, as me, many of our land that my dad left for us and we inherited from my dad and mom are in C. So it's no man land. And
Mm.
if you're so unlucky that the wall came and divided your home, half of your home is in A, and maybe it's the rest is in C. And I'm sure my fellow Dominican understands when you have an outside bathroom and ended up on the other side of the wall. And now you have to go 2, 3 hours to get to your bathroom because you cannot cross. Or
Wow.
the wall went and parted your home in two pieces, or your land is on one side and your home is on the other side. Or if you are unlucky and living in Hebron and you happen to live by the street that's called the Martyrs, and it's called the Palestinians, that they are Jews and that they hold Palestinian passports and that they live among us with us. And do you know that there is Palestinian Jews in the Revolutionary Council, that they are in the leadership of the Palestinian Authority and Al-Fatah?
Hmm.
And they defend their land because it's their land. Palestine is a melting pot of Christians, Jews, and Muslims. And we're being an Israeli does not mean you have to be a Jew. Being
Mm.
a Zionist does not have to be a Jew, because there's many others that they're not Jews, that they're more Zionist than the Jews themselves. The Jews that like Naturi Karta, and I urge everyone to go and search about them, they defend Palestine. They go and they are standing in front of the United Nations every single day with the flag of Palestine, defending Palestine, saying that the Israelis, the Jews should not have a state because the religion says that they need to be scattered like all other Muslims and Christians all over the world. They cannot have a Jew state. And they have the flag of Israel that says no to the state of Israel, yes to the state of Palestine, because they have not known anything other than being Palestinians Jew. It is not about Jews. When we welcomed them to our home in 1947 and 46 and before that, Jews and Christians and Muslims, they were living next to each other, with each other. In 1991, when we signed Oslo, we recognized the state of Israel, and we said, okay, they exist, they have the right to exist, we have the right to exist, and each one should have their independent states. Still Israelis, and you asked me a question and I haven't answered, and I'm gonna address it right now. You said, and why did they recognize Israel and not recognize Palestine? Because of the upper forces that threatened any country that recognizes Palestine. Until our day and today, every country that recognizes Palestine, the minister of the settlers, Smutrich and Bingafir, came out and said, each country that recognized Palestine now, after October 7, we will do a settlement and we will name it with that country. That's how arrogant they are.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
So
No,
October 7 came as a result of a brewing occupation of
it sounds
7
like a pressure pipe that exploded.
And I am against life for the Israelis to come and do what they planned all the way to do, to eliminate Gaza, and after that to eliminate West Bank. Do you know that they're slaughtering West Bank too? And no
Yeah,
one
we see we
talking.
see we see them on TikTok. We see the TikToks. I think that is for the most part, that is the only place you could really see, because it appears that we are we are we are being shielded, or I want to use my words correctly. It would appear that it's very selective as to what we are shown here
They,
in
they
in
control
in,
the
in the
narrative.
West. Yes, yes. And I want to bring in Lalu is an advocate, and he resides in Barbados, and he's done some work over the last 10 years in terms of advocacy as it relates to the to Palestine. Lalu, share with us a little bit about the work that you've been doing, and why you started this work a decade ago, and it's so relevant today in 2024. Oh, sorry, Lalu. Sorry, your mic was off. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. You had raised the issue of it being a religious issue between Jews and Arabs, or in effect, Jews and Muslims. I presume meant, because
Yes.
Arabs have all kinds of different religions, including
Yes.
Christianity, but I believe you were referring to
Muslim.
Islam.
Yes.
Just for the record, I don't subscribe to any religion. My interest in Palestine is exclusively to do with human rights. I was the chair of the Barbados Bar Association Human Rights Committee, and my interest is exclusively human rights. So I see the situation in Palestine as a human rights issue. It's not a religious issue. Some people choose to depict it that way to camouflage the realities. But as Linda pointed out, there are Jews in Palestine, there are Christians in Palestine, there are atheists in Palestine, there are Marxists in Palestine. So it's nothing to do with religion. It's a simplistic analysis to reduce it to that. So my interest has been human rights issues, and I see what's going on in Palestine even before October last year as being a gross violation of human rights. As Linda pointed out, this has been going on since 1917, the Balfour Declaration. Britain has so much blood on its hands, and it's nothing unusual. You were talking about somebody coming to your village. Is it Vegas, you said?
Because yes.
And chucking you out and taking over the land. But in reality, this has been the history of the world in terms of colonialism. I mean, the whole of Africa was carved up between France and Britain and Germany, Belgium, Spain, India, under occupation, colonialism for so many years, all over the world. So what we're seeing played out in Palestine is a miniature historical reality that has happened in several other places. The difference between Palestine and what is happening or has happened elsewhere is that, one, it's contemporary, and secondly, it's the whole world in reality is complicit in what has happened. Linda mentioned the struggles that we had to get various CARICOM countries to recognize Palestine. We in Barbados have been lobbying since our inception in 2014 to get Barbados to recognize Palestine. And it was only in April this year, I think the 19th of April, that Barbados recognized Palestine. And then there was a chain reaction. A number of other countries that hadn't also recognized Palestine, the Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica. They also joined in and recognized Palestine. So now all the CARICOM countries recognize Palestine. But what is happening in Palestine, as Mr. Mandela has pointed out, and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, is in effect a form of apartheid. And it's worse, according to them, and these gentlemen should know, than what existed in apartheid South Africa. And we were in the forefront of the struggle against apartheid in South Africa. But when it comes to the apartheid in Palestine, we and Israel. Belize has, but not any of the others. I wrote to the CARICOM Secretary General as the secretary of the group I'm in, Caribbean Against Apartheid in Palestine, since January this year, asking that the CARICOM countries suspend breaking diplomatic relations, but suspending diplomatic relations with Israel. And I'm yet to even get a formal acknowledgement to my letter. It was an email, and I copied in various ambassadors and so on, and they received the email. So the presumption is that the CARICOM Secretariat in Guyana also received it, but they haven't even acknowledged it. So there's lots of duplicity involved here. This is why I say that the situation in Palestine is different from a conflict, say, in the Sudan or Haiti or wherever else, because the whole world is complicit in what has happened in Palestine. As Linda pointed out as well, in 1948, United Nations passed a partition resolution. It was Israel is the baby of the United Nations, the creation of the United Nations, and therefore the United Nations has an obligation to look after its baby to make sure it doesn't misbehave. But Israel is saying, why us? Why are you targeting us? Why aren't you talking about other human rights issues around the world? Of course, we talk about human rights issues globally, but given that Israel is the creation of the United Nations has a paramount obligation to ensure that it doesn't breach international law, the Geneva Conventions, the International Court of Justice rulings, the Security Council rulings, or what have you. So that is the crucial difference between Israel and any other human rights issue globally.
Mhm. I want to ask you a little bit about, you spoke a little bit about the international law and the play in the conflict. But can you share with us, like, what role does this have in terms of how Palestine is positioned or being represented at the United Nations or even on other global platforms?
Well, I see Palestine has been granted observer status at United Nations, and recently they were given a seat at United Nations, but they're not recognized as a full member of the United Nations. So they're not in a position to do things that other countries are capable of doing, like proposing resolutions, etc. What I find of interest is to juxtapose what is happening in the Ukraine with what is currently happening in Gaza. I mean, I was looking recently at some statistics from the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. The war in the Ukraine started on the current war, the 24th of February 2022, which is 2.5 years ago. And according to the United Nations Human Rights Commissioner, so far in 2.5 years, 35,160 civilians have been killed up until the 31st of July this year, and 23,640 injured. In Gaza, which has a tiny population, I should say that Ukraine has a population of 38 million.
Brilliant, yes.
Gaza has a population of 2.5 million. And just in a 8-month period, 40,005 people have been killed. That's up, this is according to UNRWA, United Nations Refugee Agency, up until the 15th of August. 40,005 people have been killed and 92,401 wounded. The Lancet, which is the British medical journal, on the 20th of July 2024, actually estimated the deaths at higher than that. They said an estimate of 186,000, because they're saying that there's lots of bodies still under the rubble, and people have died from as a result of the war, or war is not the right word, but the occupation. 186,000 because they've been denied basic things like food, water, medication. There are hospital appointments, people who are cancer patients or kidney dialysis machines. None of these things are functioning anymore. So these people are dying. So they're saying the real death toll is 186,000, which works out at 7.9% of the Gazan population. And if you were to use the same figures for the Ukraine, there would have to be 3 and has a right to defend itself. But what about the Palestinians? Don't the Palestinians have a right to defend themselves as well? They've been under occupation since at least since 1948, some 75, 76 years or thereabouts.
Yes, and it brings me back to thinking, even, of course, 1,200 people died in October of last year, and today there's so much more. It's like, when does it end? Like when exactly does it end? It just makes me wonder, like, is this gonna go on forever? Like, is this gonna continue? And there's so much power involved, power at play, that they play with the media, and they play with people's daily lives and daily bread, and make you feel like guilty, or make you feel like you don't have a voice, or you should not have a voice. But many people have decided to speak up, and I just want to go to the chat because people are coming on. There are quite a few folks. Someone is saying, I love the content. I'm listening from New York. Another person says, I'm listening from Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm listening from New Jersey. Someone is saying, great content, very interesting content. There should be a lot more people on this live. This is an entire history lesson. And that's on Facebook. On YouTube, folks are saying, the flag of Israel was used in a treaty with the USA and Ethiopia in 1906. and the state of Israel was formed in the 1940s. I'm trying to figure out what the context of that is and where did that fall into, and probably you guys can help to shed some light. People are the others are part of the live as well. Don't prolong it. Oh no, no, definitely not Asha. We'll try and get everybody in, and everybody has their unique perspective in terms of how they contribute to this conversation. So we'll try and get as many people in the discussion as possible. That brings me to Dominica a little bit, or the Caribbean a little bit, because you've kind of given us, Lalu, a little bit of a history lesson, as well as a few of the legalities behind what is going on behind the conflict. But we've had people who are advocating, and somebody might say, "Oh, for example, I'll bring in Dr. Ahmed. Dr. Ahmed is a doctor based in Dominica, living in Dominica, married to a Dominican with Dominican children, and they might say, "Oh, he kind of look like he's an Arab." I'm keeping it 100. He might have an interest in why he feels it necessary to advocate for what's going on in Palestine. Dr. Ahmed, can you share a little bit about your background and let us know why you've decided to come on today to share why you've taken up the mantle in terms of advocating against this current conflict?
Thank you for your audience as well. So I just want to say that I'm originally from Bangladesh, and I came to study at Ross University in Dominica, and then subsequently I stayed, married to a Dominican, and children thereafter. So this is personal level, and I am in Dominican or Dominican, working in Dominica. So why I felt that I need to come to this is that the atrocities that is happening in Palestine. This is so graphic. I mean, we are seeing things so live now, which I have heard this genocide or atrocities other part of the world, that's years after, long years after. At that point, many things happened. For example, Bosnia genocide, and there were genocide in Africa, in Central Africa. So this is, and at that time, actually, after they make a movie on the African genocide that happened, after they make a movie, that's how I got to know what took place, the horrendous that took place. This is heartbreaking. Now we are seeing father or parents that picked up their children and there is no brain, only the put it in a speech to explain what they're going through. And this is, if we just talk about the genocide itself that started in October 7 and onward, that's way beyond my capacity to really explain that. This is I have children, so when I see children um, being murdered in a mass in an industrial capacity, I have to live, let's say, every massacre that is taking place many times over. I have to think that, hey, that's my children, and they're dead, and then again they're going to kill another set of children, and say again, it's ongoing torture for somebody. In terms of the mental health, it's a factor that we need to consider. We need to be a human. We have to talk about it. We need to stop. I am in Dominica. I am Dominican, and from the Dominican point of view, my interest is this genocide needs to stop. I stand with Palestine because I believe in the humanity. It's not that Arab versus Jew, Muslim versus Jew, Arab versus Israel. It's not that at all. I do support both states. I do support the state of Israel and state of Palestine. But what is happening? One has to be human to say I stand with Palestine. This is not about October 7. This is not October 7. October 7 actually brought out the entire history that is history of behind this what is conflict. Now, I just want to point out two things. Please, people, go back and if you read the the a Jewish State by Theodor Herzl that was that was written in 1896, and Theodor Herzl is actually founder of political Zionism. Please read that how he envisioned colonization of Palestine. I want to go more to say that the Israel state of Israel did not actually started in 1948. If you go to if that was the case, then why Balfour Declaration was signed in 25 years before the World War II? In 1917, Balfour Declaration was signed and given the land to, or promised the land given will be given to the Israelis. The World War II is just a pretext for people to migrate from Europe to Palestine. There were Jews and Muslims and Christians who were living for thousands of years. I don't know if they know the history when the Umar, one of the Caliph of Islamic ruler, who went to Israel, and he was given the key of the Jewish sepulchre or some church. That's the trust that trusted to the Muslims. And at that point, the Muslim ruler actually told everyone, Christian and Jew, you guys can practice freely without any problem. Since then, Jewish and Christian are living side by side in the land of Palestine, all through. So it is not about Muslim versus Jew, Christian, and Palestine versus Israel. It is not. So the people of Dominica needs to think that colonization is actually still happening. It is not. It
It's
is
another
not.
thing of the past.
It's not exactly. It is not. It is. It is ongoing process. Wherever there is capital or what is called imperialistic a attitude or doctrine, there will be colonization. There will be a colonization. But what I want to remind that injustice, they will implement, they will repeat these things, and it will repeat it on other part of the world as well. So it's not just the Palestine. The Palestine actually situation in Palestine actually open up the magnitude of what is happening in the world and who are behind this, who are complicit in this genocide, in these atrocities. So there is a lot more that Palestine actually offered us. And people say this is a war. This is not a war. There is no war in it. Where is the war I see? The things that happen in war, that was in day of October 7. Subsequent to that, there is no war. There was a mass killing. There was a one-sided mass killing. And we all know if we have to target a criminal, we or they have the capacity to pinpoint a criminal way far from a near location, and they can take the criminal out if they want to. But in this case, actually intentionally was bombed community after community, and over 18,000 innocent children was killed to date. I mean, there's more to it, but however, in terms of documentation, there are documented 18,000 children were killed so far.
Wow. Wow, thank you very much for this, Dr. Ahmed. I want to bring in Imam Tawi into this discussion because obviously people would look at you and say, "Oh, you know, Imam is from he's Dominican. What he talking about?" And oh, he's a Muslim, so probably that's why he wants to tell us about why you feel it's important for you to advocate for your cause or for that specific cause. Why did you come on board and decide that this is something that you feel you should speak up about, you should get people to know about it so they can make a decision and make the best decision? Because I feel we can always just go around and talk and say, oh, this is going on and whatever, but how do we actually make an impact? How do we as Caribbean people, how can we impact what is going on right now and so that there can be change?
Thank you. First, let me say good night to your listeners and thank you for having us. Um, uh, well, really and truly, the question should be why? Why shouldn't we voice or show condemnation and speak up against this atrocity, this carnage, this onslaught, this genocide, as it is rightly called, that is happening today in Palestine? And it doesn't matter where they are, because we ourselves of African descent in this part of the region, this part of the world, shouldn't have what they say in Patois, memoir pool, as in forgetting how we got here, you know? Because if we have to go according to some of the stories that is going on, that so-called this part of Palestine, or Palestine belongs to to the the Jews, then Dominica belongs to the Caribs, and therefore, henceforth today, we should probably give the Caribs complete control over Dominica because that's their land. They were there
Kalinago,
first, right?
Kalinago.
Excuse. Thank you for the correction. The Kalinagos, right?
We are in
Yeah,
Kalinago week, so say it
I, I,
properly.
I apologize sincerely for that mistake. And yeah, so rightfully we would have to go according to that narrative and give Dominica to the control of the Kalinagos, right? But truth is, why shouldn't we speak up against the genocide, right? Uh, Britain had no right to steal Palestine and give it to who they feel like giving it. That is another, as Brother Lalu said, we saw that that is their trademark. You know, they have been doing it from way back when. They doing it now, and apparently they don't intend to stop. They do intend to stop. So when we see that onslaught happening, we cannot just sit back. And I know we have become so insensitive to seeing killings, especially how they have given.
It's not just even the most graphic one, and I'm always so appalled. Like my friends know not to share these things with me, at the fact that we are okay with it. So you are right.
And that is the type of community, that is the type of environment we have today. It is sad that people see crimes and they just pass it straight by. People call themselves believers in God and they forget the whole story of the Good Samaritan when he saw somebody on the side of the road and they help. And no matter the distance or the geographical location of the onslaught, if we cannot stop it with our hands, we should, as one of the companions of the prophets, the Prophet himself said in Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, that if you see oppression, you should try your best to stop it with your hands. And if you cannot stop it with your hands, then you should stop it with your mouth. And if you cannot stop it with your mouth, then you should hate it in your heart. And he said, hating it in your heart is the weakest of faith, weakest of iman. And as human beings, and not only because I'm a Muslim, I feel compelled to voice or speak up against the atrocities happening against not just the Muslims over there, but as a human being. Somebody might say we are small and we are just a dot on the map, and why should we even be speaking up? If a person has get a prick from a prick of a fawn, no matter how small that fawn is, you have to give that part of your body attention. And no matter how far Palestine is, no matter how small they are, the whole world as human beings, as a human race, we have to speak up against atrocities. We have to. It's our duty as human beings, as God-fearing people. We have to. And as Lalu said, though he not ascribing to any religion, it is part of his human duty. One of the sayings of one of the companions of the prophet is that if we are not brothers in faith, then we are brothers in humanity. And wherever we see injustice, we have to speak up against it.
Thank you very much for
So I
sharing.
just want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's Dominicans. We see the injustice, we speak up against it. We see the injustice, we condemn it, and we support those that are condemning it as well.
I want to bring back in the ambassador to the forefront of the conversation, and specifically to kind of. So I recently saw a film, and I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's called "Where Olive Trees Weep," and let me tell you, that film like ripped my heart apart, because it's not just like, it doesn't just talk about the fact that this is a fight for land, this is a fight for control and power. It also speaks to the amount of torture, like extreme torture, like one of the the characters, her story on how she was tortured, to the point where she almost couldn't walk. She had to go through rehabilitation to learn to walk again, and being in a cell where you could not move, and hearing people, trying to encourage her to stay alive, all around her, but not being able to touch them or feel them, but just hearing voices screaming, knowing that she was about to be tortured. um can you share a little bit with us, because you may have family there, and I think you are the one who's probably the closest to this in terms of your relatives. Oftentimes we say, oh, they're not my family, oh, they're not my friends, I don't know them. Can you share with us about the what your family is going through right now in Palestine?
I actually fear, fear bring with that brain.
You're breaking up a bit. Are you guys hearing her okay? Everybody's hearing her okay?
No.
You're breaking up a little bit. I don't know why.
Maybe the hospital. Uh,
Okay.
that work.
I don't know. Suddenly we hear every other word. We're hearing every other word.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, let me just mute you and unmute you. Go ahead again.
I say that I am worried and scared. Every time that this phone rings, a text message during the night, whole families slaughtered, friends, neighbors. My brother, when I said, "Are you leaving?" he said, "No. Your mother refused to leave in 1967 and said, if we leave, we'll never come back, and I will not, even if the bombs are falling in our front yard." So that's the worry that I live. But I want to take a little bit and point out that when we say genocide against Muslims, I want to point out the genocide against Christians in Gaza, the genocide when they bombed and killed the Christians in the churches and destroyed the churches, when they destroyed the hospital, when they destroyed the Presbyterian hospital, that all the workers and most of them are either or the sisters, and they just do not care if you're Muslim or Christian or whoever you are. As long as you are Palestinian, you need to be slaughtered. When they claimed beheaded babies, they came out and denied and said a rumor, we did not see it. But us, you have videos of live beheaded babies. When my fellow and brothers and sisters in Dominica say, why should I care? I will just say that in 2017, and after having a hurricane here in in Houston, Texas, where I reside, I heard of the hurricane in Dominica.
Mhm.
And I picked up the phone and I called my president, called the foreign minister, and said, we need to head out to Dominica now. We need to take our doctors, we need to take our civil defense, we need to run. Our brothers and sisters in Dominica need us. They recognized Palestine. They believed in us. They supported us in the United Nations. We need to run and support. And I had the honor and pleasure.
We got cut off.
So, brothers in
We got cut off.
Dominica,
We got a cut off for a split second. You were saying I had the pleasure, and we missed that part.
and the pleasure and honor to live among you guys, to be with you, to be sleeping in the stadium of Roseau and receiving the airplanes, uh, going around and making churches as clinics, and our doctors going from home to home and working. We cleared up the airport and we stayed there for 10 days. We were the third group arrived, the third rescue team to arrive. The first was the Venezuelan and the Cuban, and the third was Palestine. And then after that, all other major countries came. And when they see us, they'll say, what are you doing here? And no one could understand what are the Palestinians, 36 Palestinians, doing in the middle of a hurricane in Dominica. It's because we care. It's because you guys are our brothers and sisters that believe that we have the right to exist and recognize the state of Palestine, because we're humans, because we saw that we can do, because we're not a rich country, but we are rich in our human resources, in our doctors, our civil engineers, our water treatment engineers, our Red Crescent. And that's why you should care.
I want
I testified to that. I testified to that during after Hurricane Maria. I was aware of Palestinian doctors are on the island doing helping helping the locals, the community level. So thank you for that. I mean, I was surprised how they come all the way here and they were able to reach Dominica. I mean, that was a very beginning from the following the Hurricane Maria.
We arrived on the third day of Hurricane Maria.
wow, wow. That contribute to supporting peace efforts in the Israel Palestine conflict, if that's what we want to call it. I don't know. I don't even know if I can call it conflict anymore.
Occupation. It's not a
How can
conflict.
we how do we contribute to supporting, peace efforts? Because I think at the end of the day, I think for the most part, nobody wants war, at least from our angle, right? How can we contribute to these supporting peace efforts, specifically around, you know, um, humanitarian work, public diplomacy, advocacy? What is our role as small nations and communities? How can we play in the really supporting peace, human rights, and justice?
Advocate, talk about it. Do not give up on us. Do not see it as normal. Do not scroll down. Share videos. Speak about it. Educate your neighbors, educate your students, educate your kids about what's happening. And then what's happening to Palestinians can be happen to any of us. Teach them that this is the pay for the Palestinians for receiving someone and letting them in their homes. That's how they got paid back. Do you know right now that you go and say, my child is missing, my dad is missing, and they'll tell you, how much do you think they weigh? Oh, my son is about 8 9 kilos. They'll give you 8 kilos of slush in a bag and told you that go bury this, because when they say 40,000, 40,000 are the identified. When Lalo said 186,000 or 68,000, it's because those are unidentified under the rubble. No one know them. The one they fled from the north to the middle of Gaza to the south, no one knew who they are. They got bombed. And as Dr. Ahmad said, if they can pinpoint someone in a hotel or in a residence or wherever he is and bomb, that they want it, and they want, and they continue to want to slaughter everyone to end up the existence of the Palestinians. There is oil in Gaza, and they're already pre-selling real estate chalets on the beach in Gaza to tourists and to whoever wants to invest. They have no intention of giving us a state. They have no intention of leaving Palestine. Now they're slaughtering Palestinians, over 756 Palestinians assassinated in West Bank, hospitals, infrastructures in Tulkarem, in Jenin, in Nablus, in Bethlehem, in Tubas. It's ongoing genocide, televised genocide. Please speak about it, talk about it, have the courage to talk about it. Do not
Yes.
scroll, do not give up on us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lalu. I want to bring you back in, specifically because I think you might be able to speak to, because you're very much heavily involved in, of course, advocacy, and over the last 10 years, like you mentioned. But to my knowledge, we're hearing of hundreds of people without food, without water, without so many different, some of their most basic needs. And of course that is that goes against the human rights. People are being told that they cannot cross over to do groceries. It's like you need a passport on top of a passport on top of another passport in order to cross in, to get food, to get supplies, to get medical care. And you can easily just, like, you can be slaughtered like this. Lalu, what can you share with us based on, your the work that you guys have been doing in Barbados, the work that your advocacy group has been doing, in terms of how we in the Caribbean, how can we assist? Because the ambassador made a very valid observation, talking about the fact that, in quick time, Palestine was in Dominica, during Hurricane Maria. And, one of the first things that we needed was water. We needed water. We needed we need, so to speak, where we experience hurricanes at any given time, and we all have to lean on each other. What can you say in terms of how we as Caribbean people can respond to the fact that people are being denied their human rights? They're not able to get food and water.
Hi. Well, I mentioned that we had been agitating for diplomatic recognition, which we've achieved.
Mhm.
We've also been involved in something called BDS, which is boycott, divest, and sanction, which is a way of boycotting Israeli products in the Caribbean. I don't know if you have this in Dominica, but there's hummus that's imported from New York, that from a company that's owned by Israeli interests, called Sabra, Sabra. Do you have that hummus over there in your shops?
I'm not. I would not know. I would
Okay.
not know.
But so we've got a campaign in Barbados to have a boycott of Sabra, the hummus, to hurt Israeli interests financially. This is what was done in the days of apartheid in South Africa. People were boycotting, for example, Barclays Bank, because Barclays Bank was highly involved in investments in South Africa, in the diamond mines and so on. So similarly, we're agitating for a boycott of Israeli products. BDS is known as I said, it's the acronym for boycott, divest, and sanction. Also, the Bank of Nova Scotia. A lot of people don't know this, but the Bank of Nova Scotia. Do you have the Bank of Nova Scotia in
Well, not in
Dominica?
Dominica, not in Dominica right now. No, no, they've since
Okay,
pulled
because
out.
the Bank of Nova Scotia is also involved in the armaments industry in Israel. So again, we are calling for a boycott in the context of Barbados and the wider Caribbean of that. Yeah. So it's by boycotting Israeli products, and also to put pressure on CARICOM to be more proactive, to actually suspend diplomatic relations at the very least with Israel. Um, for whatever reason, a number of Caribbean countries are reluctant to do so because they're interested in.
Why do you think? Why do you think that is the case? Like, what? Why is it so important to maintain relations with Israel? I'm interested to know.
Well, I think for two reasons, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, but it's a form of prostitution almost, because they get a few little knickknacks now and again from Israel. Like for example, Grantley Adams Airport, the security system, I understand that the airport was installed by Israelis. Um, um, the Israelis fund various sporting endeavors in Barbados, football and so on. So it's, to me, it's a form of prostitution whereby they're prepared to give up principle for a few little pennies. But also because there's a large section of the population, and Linda touched on this earlier. She said that you don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. A lot of Christians are Zionists because of their misunderstanding of what Israel is. They see Israel as some sort of biblical entity, whereas in fact it has nothing whatsoever to do with the Bible. It's a Nazi state, a fascist state in effect. But they're confusing and conflating biblical names with contemporary names. So there's also that electorate part that politicians in Barbados and the wider Caribbean are a little sensitive about, because people conflate the Israel of the Bible with the Israel that currently exists, even though the only thing they have in common is the names, nothing else.
Mm.
But I think we need to be putting pressure on CARICOM and our own individual governments to take it up with CARICOM to suspend diplomatic relations with Israel.
Thank you very much, Lalu. Someone sent me a message, and I want one of you to respond. Someone is saying that I'm confused. Who are Zionists, and where does the term come from? So so that's a question coming from someone on WhatsApp.
Well, the word Zionist, again, it relates to the Old Testament and Zion, and it's the name given to people now who support this colonialist project in Palestine to settle people there from other parts of the world. If you listen to interviews with IDF, Israeli defense in years, are now living in refugee camps in surrounding countries in Lebanon, in Tunisia, in Syria, in Jordan, scattered all over the diaspora, and they have no right of return. So it's a racist policy. It's on par with South Africa, really. South Africa had the whites only policy. Any white person could migrate to South Africa, but black people born there, living there for hundreds and thousands of years, had their rights removed. And it's the same situation existing. You can't talk about Palestine without talking about apartheid South Africa, because they're on par with each other.
Well, thank you very much for answering. I did make an appeal to folks on Facebook if you had any questions. No one seems to have any questions on Facebook, but people are just really say someone actually says yes, they use Sambra, but they will not be using it anymore. And on YouTube, someone is saying humanity has, so Idris is saying humanity has failed the Palestinians, followed by a comment stating this information you just shared about the assistance you gave to Dominica after Hurricane Maria. I think that has to do with what the ambassador was speaking about. Most Dominicans don't know about it. So that is really good information that you shared, and it shows that you guys came quickly and you were able to assist, and not just Dominicans. I'm sure if you were in a position too, when hurricane struck this year, the various islands that were devastated, I'm sure that you would have also lend a hand in as much as you could. I want to give you guys, each of you, the opportunity to have your final say as we wrap up. I just want to acknowledge again, we have viewers on Imo News who are locked in as well. So I want to give you all, starting with Imam, to give you guys the final say. Anything you want to share, anything you want to say, anything you want to reiterate. I want to give you the opportunity to do so as we get ready to wrap up. So, Imam.
Yes, thank you. It have been told to me that why we are not showing concern of Sudan as well, that is going through some, type of onslaught there. But what we say is Sudan problem is a Sudanese problem that they have to solve internally. But the carnage and the onslaught and the genocide that's happened in Palestine, we see a people come from another place and invading their country, right? And one thing Brother Lalo forgot to mention was the hurtful guy who began the Zionist philosophical movement. He wasn't even a believer in God. He was he was an atheist, an atheist that said he's going to find a place that was created for the people of God. And through genocide, through terrorism, he have killed Palestinians, forced them out of the home, and steal a land, right? And so we say people should be aware, because imagine if that was you. Imagine if that was you now, like how it was our ancestors before us. And we say, he who condones evil is as guilty as the perpetrator himself. So the person who's people who condones the evil, the atrocities that Israel is committing, the Israeli Zionists is committing, they themselves are guilty of that perpetration. And we say to be aware, stay on the right side of history, that in later down in a few decades, when we hear of the Palestinian issue, a person can say we stood up on the right side of history, and we didn't keep our mouth shut, because worse than not supporting Palestine is staying quiet about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imam. Dr. Ahmed? You're on mute. Sorry, you're on mute. Go ahead.
Sorry. What is happening in Palestine, the Dominican and the Caribbean people, they need to be aware of exact scenario, situation, what is happening in Palestine. It is not about religion. There are many millions of Jews standing with Palestine to solve their agenda and their atrocities they're happening. Right from this October 7th, there was a lie about 40 beheaded babies. That's totally lie. There was a lie about the sexual assault. That is also lie. There is no forensic evidence. There is no eyewitness that they can testify to it. And whatever New York Times actually published, that has been debunked by now. So these are the things actually is a pretext to do cause so that people can be their favor, and when they cause the mass atrocities, so that it doesn't feel that bad. That's the reason, exactly the same reason they are doing, and they continue to lie in the process. So this is, we have to know, we cannot be biased in it. Please, the Dominican, Caribbean, know the story behind what is going on. Way back, the founder of the Zionism is actually what Imam just said, is atheist. Now, if you use the biblical term that this is what God gave them, it doesn't fly. It doesn't fly, because Zionism actually developed is actually idea of having a Jewish state. But I am not practicing a Jew. How that goes? Jews who were there in the Palestine way before the European so-called Jewish background come to the Palestine. So I just want to say that know little more about it, then you will find out the truth of the sufferings of Palestine, not just this year, not just last year, over the last 76 years on daily basis, dehumanization, dispossession, subjugation, you name it, everything was thrown
Nation.
at them. Thrown at them.
Thank you
Like,
very much, Dr. Ahmed. Lalu?
I just want to make it clear that as a group, we're opposed to any killing of civilians, regardless of who's involved in it. Nothing can justify the killing of civilians. Um, uh, Even if the Zionists are correct in saying 1,200 people died at the hands of Hamas on the 7th of October, which figure is challengeable in many ways, but even if they're correct, they can in no way justify the figure put out by UNRWA, United Nations Refugee Agency, that to date in excess of 40,000 civilians in Gaza have been murdered by Israeli forces. Israel is a signatory to the Geneva Conventions. Hamas is not. Israel needs to be kept to a higher level of account. And as I said, Israel, in my earliest presentation, Israel is the baby of the United Nations. It was created by the United Nations. It has to abide by international law. It cannot have any exceptionalism. And of course, as I mentioned, the Lancet, the medical journal, is saying, in fact, something like 186,000 people have died. It's important to remember that Gaza is smaller than Barbados. It's 140 square miles. Barbados, 166 square miles. It has 2.5 million people. Barbados has 300,000. But imagine if those 2,000-pound bombs that Harris and Biden have been sending on a daily basis to in transport aircraft to Tel Aviv and other places in Israel to bomb Gaza, were dropping on Barbados and had been dropping for almost a year, 2,000-pound bombs dropping on Barbados with a population of 300,000. Imagine the devastation, the carnage that would result. And multiply that now by the fact that there are 2.5 million people trapped in this tiny little zone with those 2,000 bombs falling on them, without water supplies, without food supplies. They're told to move to a so-called safe zone, and then the so-called safe zone is bombed. It's happening repeatedly. It's happening daily. Mm-hmm. Israel is a Nazi state. It's a fascist state. And unfortunately, Biden and Harris, they are supporting that by providing the bombs. They are as guilty and complicit as the Israelis. I know that the Americans now are faced with a choice between Harris and Trump, and it's like voting for Hitler.
Too bad.
A choice between Hitler and Mussolini, because in reality they're both nasty characters. Harris and Trump.
Happening in front of the family and children, and then killing the woman. But not just that. For prisoners, they have been raping them by entering their phone devices in their rectal. Mm-hmm. This is something that people don't want to talk about. Why? More than 30,000 children have been assassinated. More than 17,000 women. The Embryon Center for Fertility, 5,000 live embryon. Are those also terrorists? The churches, the mosques, the hospitals, the schools, the journalists, the UN employees, the UNRWA employees. Every single journalist is a target. No one is safe. They bomb and they burn even the tents in the refugee, so-called, as my brother Lalo said, safe zone. There is no safe zone in Gaza, safe zone in West Bank where settlers are storming, where settlers are passing their above the skulls of Palestinians in West Bank, where they're pulling their eyes out with the point of rifles, where they're terrorizing them. This is what we live every day. So much for having us. God bless.
I'm so sorry. Again, Ambassador, I know you're dealing with this every single day, and I'm happy that you guys, I know you're not well, you're not 100%, but you definitely have a lot of courage. In Dominica, we would say "uni courage." You came out, and although you're not feeling 100%, as a matter of fact, folks don't even know you're right now in a hospital. You're currently in the hospital, but you chose to be here on the program. And I truly appreciate you being on here and presenting and sharing with us. I feel like without knowledge, the people perish. So we have to know so that we can understand, so we can make better decisions. And I also want to say Thank you very much to our other guests. Thank you very much to you, Lalu, for coming in, and the work that you're doing and the work that you continue to do, as it relates to the advocacy work in Barbados, as it relates to Palestine. Thank you very much to Dr. Ahmed, for really voicing your views, and as well as ma'am, and thank you very much, for sharing with us and coming on and showing that there are people who are interested. There are people who are fighting for this. I also want to shout out Giselle Astafan, who put this together. Like, she just put this together, and she was dead set and head set and on this happening. There was nothing I could do to stop her, right? Thank you very much, for even shedding light, bringing me up to speed on things that were going on, and sharing with me and getting me to understand why it is important for us to air. And thank you very much to Emo News, who's also been streaming this on her platform. And thank you to all the viewers who tuned in, as well as those of you who are on my platform, who've locked in and shared. I want to encourage you guys to share the live. If there's one time you need to share it, is now. If you've never shared it before, today share it. All right. This is not about me. This is a bigger cause. You probably say, I don't like you, I'm not sharing it. Share it because you like humanity. You care for humanity. You hope that by just informing somebody of what is going on, they'll be able to advocate along with you for change and free Palestine. Thank you very much, guys, all of you, for coming on here
Thank you
this
very
evening.
Thank
much.
you. Free
Have a good
Palestine.
evening. Yeah, and I hope you feel better. Bye bye.
Bye.
All right,
Okay, all
Bye
the
bye,
best.
guys.
Bye bye. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Bye bye. That you were able to grasp the information. All, there's a plethora of information out there that you can tap into and get to know. I recently saw an interview with a Jewish professor and a Palestinian professor who become friends as a result of what is going on in the East. They've become friends because they understand the value in humanity and why it is important to advocate for this world to end. Thanks to every single one of you who tuned in near and far. I want to encourage you guys to log in tomorrow. I'll be back with you tomorrow with the Flavors of the World Festival. You'll be joining me right here on the program. If you've missed the show, you came in late, you can always come back and look at this again. You can also follow on YouTube. The clips are, or the entire show is also available for you on YouTube as well as on LinkedIn. Saying good night until such time. Bye bye.